This section is factoring completely. There are some steps using the flowchart will help you to do this. The very first thing you need to do is factor out a greatest common factor. I have a 3 that is my GCF, so I'm going to factor that out and get x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, what's remaining in this parentheses is a trinomial that can be factored into binomials. So the signs are going to be the same. Bring down the x. Factors is 6. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Which factors add up to get 5? 2 and 3. And don't forget to bring down the 3. That is your final answer. Example B. Again, we're going to find a GCF, which is 3. And we get x squared minus x minus 6. This polynomial, we can now factor. What's in that parentheses is a trinomial that we can factor into two binomials. My signs are going to be different. Now this time, I need to find factors of 6 that subtract to get 1, 3, and 2. I am going to put the larger number behind whatever the first sign is. The first sign is negative, so I am going to put the 3 behind the negative. And again, don't forget to bring down the 3. I'm going to factor out a GCF, which is 3g. What's left over is 9g squared minus 1. Now, in this parentheses, that is a difference of two perfect square that can factor into 3x plus 1 times 3x minus 1. And again, bring down don't forget to bring down the 3g. Example D, remember if your first term is ever a negative, you have to factor out a negative. So my GCF is a negative y. And I get 4y to the second minus 9. Because remember, when you factor out a negative number, it changes the sign. Now, 4y squared minus 9. That is a difference of two perfect square. The factors are in 2y plus 3 times 2y minus 3. And again, don't forget to bring down the negative y. Example E, I'm going to factor out a GCF of x. Sometimes your GCF is a number, sometimes it's a letter, and sometimes it's both. So I get 9x squared minus 4. 9x squared is a difference of two perfect square that factors into 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. And then again, bring down the x. That is your final answer. Now what I want you to do is I want you to write down these 4 problems, pause the tape, work them, and then play it back and see if you get the same answer. Well, the b to the 4th minus 16, that is b squared plus 4 times b squared minus 4. Now b squared plus 4, you cannot do anything with that. That is a prime. That is not a difference of two perfect square. But b squared minus 4 can factor in a b plus 2 times b minus 2. Letter example B, 625. That is 25 plus x squared times 25 minus x squared. And again, this 25 plus x squared is prime. You cannot do anything with that. But this is a difference of two perfect square. 5 plus x times 5 minus x. Y to the 4th minus 1, that's a difference of two perfect square. That factors into y squared plus 1 times y squared minus 1. Again, you cannot do anything with the y squared plus 1. The y squared minus 1, that's a difference of two perfect square that factors into y plus 1 times y minus 1. Example D, that is a difference of two perfect square that factors into 2a squared plus b squared times 2a squared minus b squared. Now, this one is prime. You cannot do anything with that because of the plus sign. Look at the second parentheses. Is that a difference of two perfect square? Well, the a squared is a perfect square, the b squared is a perfect square, and it's a minus. But because of that 2, it is not a difference of two perfect square. So you are finished. You cannot do anything else with that. Example 2, that's a difference of two perfect square. 9 plus x squared times 9 minus x squared. 9 plus x squared, that is prime. You cannot do anything with that. 9 minus x squared, that's 3 plus x times 3 minus x. Example F, that's 4y squared plus 1 times 4y squared minus 1. Now again, you cannot do anything with the 4y squared plus 1, but the 4y squared minus 1, that's a difference of two perfect square. Example 3, I'm going to factor out a 5x, and I get x to the fourth minus 9. Now that is a difference of two perfect square that factors in x squared plus 3 times x squared minus 3. Now, look at this binomial. Can I do anything there? No, because it's a plus sign and because 3 is not a perfect square. Look at the second binomial. Is that a difference of two perfect square? Well, x squared is, it's a minus sign, but 3 is not a perfect square. So you cannot do anything else. You are done. Example 3b, I'm going to factor out a 2, and I get y to the fourth minus 50. So that's y plus 25 times y minus 25. Now, y plus 25, that is prime. You cannot do anything with it. So you just bring that down. Oh, I messed up here. That should be a y to the fourth. Sorry about that. And then y squared minus 25, that can factor in y plus 5 times y minus 5. Example C, I need to find a GCF. 6 goes into each term, and then that is a difference of two perfect square. X squared plus 4 is prime, but x squared minus 4, that factors in x plus 2 times x minus 2. Okay, factor by grouping. Again, the very first thing you need to do is factor out a GCF. I have a 7. So it gets x cubed plus 3x squared minus x minus 3. Now, this polynomial is a 4-term polynomial. How do you factor out a 4-term polynomial? You factor by grouping. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated. So what I would suggest you do is rewrite it with just the polynomial that's in the parentheses, ignoring the 7, and factor by grouping, where you group the first two, group the last two. Your GCF is an x squared, and you get x plus 3. Here, you don't have a GCF, you have to factor out a 1, but because the first term is a negative, you have to factor out a negative 1, and you get x plus 3. Now you have x plus 3 times x squared minus 1. Now bring down the 7. Now, are we finished? Well, we can't do anything with the x plus 3, but look at the x squared minus 1. That's a difference of two perfect square. Example 3b, I'm going to factor out, do I have a GCF? I do not have a GCF, so I'm going to just go straight to factor by grouping. Make sure that negative is inside. I'm going to factor out an m squared, and I get 2m plus 1. I'm going to factor out a negative 25, and I get 2m plus 1. Now I'm going to pull out a 2m plus 1 and get m squared minus 25. The 2m plus 1 I bring down, but the m squared minus 25 factors in m plus 5 times m minus 5. So make sure you look at your flow chart to help you. Example 2, I don't have a GCF, so I'm just going to go directly to factor by grouping. I'm going to factor out an r and get r squared plus 6. And then I'm going to factor out an 11 and get r. Oh, wait a minute. My GCF should be an r squared right here. Sorry. Going too fast. And I get r plus 6. So now it's r squared plus 6 times r squared plus 11. Now, both of these are prime. So I am done.